The rhetoric of putting tariffs on China is quite misleading. You don't tariff a country. That doesn't make any sense. You're putting tariffs on imports from a country. Let's phrase that in a different way. You, the consumer, whatever you buy that is manufactured in China is now going to cost you 25% more. A China tariff is actually a tax, sales tax, value added tax, whatever you want to call it. It's a tax on top of whatever it is that you're buying from the store when you go to the store. I just did a video where I went over what a deficit is. So if that's not clear, you should probably watch that video first. Most manufactured goods come from China. Lumber and a few things like that come from Canada. A lot of produce comes from Mexico. What Trump is doing with goods from China is something of sort of a punitive tariff. Let me explain how this works. So let's take the example of India. They have tariffs. India produces their own cars. They have a domestic company called Tata Motors, but they also have factories from Toyota, Mazda. If you live in India, you can buy a domestically manufactured car and it does not have tariff on it. But if you're too precious to buy, a car that everybody else has, basically, you want something really different, like a Corolla, then you may buy an import. But India recognizes that if you buy domestic, it benefits the local economy, your money stays within the country, and it pays for people's jobs. There's a whole economic system that is fed by you buying domestic. Right, so it wants to discourage you from buying an imported car. Now, let's say your domestic car costs, let's say $10,000. You don't want to buy that. You want to buy a Corolla, and that one is going to cost, let's say $15,000, right? But India puts a huge tariff on it, let's say 100%. So now that Corolla is going to cost you $30,000. It's meant to discourage you from spending that money on buying a foreign car. You can think of it as a luxury tax, right, in India. So what is the result of this? Well, it makes a foreign import so expensive to buy that you're more likely going to buy a domestic. But if you do spend money on a foreign import, you're going to pay so much in taxes that it benefits the government in a different way, right? So either you're putting money into the economy or you're putting money into the government coffers. It's a way to discourage you and also to balance things out, to make the economy more stable. But look at what's happening here. In the case of India, the local product, the domestic products are actually cheaper than the import. And you will end up with two types of consumers, right? People who can't really afford the $30,000 for the imported car, they're going to buy domestic. It's a sensible way to do things, right? Now, you may feel that it sucks for you if you were rich, but it's still a way that at a national level, at an economic level, it makes sense. So what's happening in the US? It's nothing like that at all. It's completely the opposite in every way. Most things are manufactured in China, right? So let's say I want to buy this headset. This headset is manufactured in China. This was $60, right? Now let's say Donald Trump puts a tax on it, a tariff on it, and 25%, so now it'll be $75. Does that mean that I'm going to now buy American instead? No, because this American-made headset is $250. I'm not going to buy this because this went up in price 25%. It doesn't make any sense. It's not going to change my behavior that way, right? It's not going to cause me to buy domestic. Is it going to incentivize manufacturers to bring manufacturing back into the United States? No. I mean, it may prompt diversification, and that might be a good thing in the long run. Maybe. But that's a different conversation. That is not what Donald Trump is talking about. Donald Trump is talking about a trade deficit as though it was a subsidy, which it isn't. And he's talking about a 25% tariff that is going to wipe out this trade subsidy, which it isn't. None of that is going to happen, right? So what is all this tariff business about? What is this going to result in? Well, two things. And most people are not talking about, especially the second one, and you should be concerned about this. The first thing, the effective tariff is that a large number of goods across the spectrum, all sorts of things, from shoes to smartphones, including lumber, building materials, produce. All of these things are going to be suddenly more expensive in the economy. What does that sound like? Because if you're thinking that that sounds an awful lot like inflation, that's exactly what it is. That is what the result of this tariff is going to be. It's inflation. It's not some secondary, tertiary, indirect result. I hesitate even saying that it's going to cause inflation because his actions are inflation. Donald Trump campaigned on reducing inflation. Like, I don't know how else to say this, okay? But I think the second thing is even more insidious than the first. Republican Party campaigns on lower taxes, right? Right? If the Republican Party tomorrow proposed increasing income tax across the board for middle class and lower income people by 5%, you all would be appalled. You would be having a fit, right? What if there was a 3% increase in sales tax across the board for everything, including food, all over the country? What would that look like? That's just a couple of percent increase in sales tax. Donald Trump has snuck in 25% tax, and he's blaming it on China. That's exactly the type of sleight of hand he's been doing from the beginning. It's a bait and switch. He's been doing it from the very beginning. And nobody is talking about this. The party of lower taxes just put a doofus in the executive office that just raised taxes across the board for the middle class and the poor, while he blames it on China, while lowering taxes for the rich. Hey there, thank you for watching. I am a brand new creator on a brand new channel. If you like the content, then I would appreciate a subscribe and share it with someone. Thanks.